Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we are going to have a little crack with Death Shadow. Now for those who don't know, Death Shadow is named around the card Death Shadow, which is a massive creature that gets smaller the more life you have basically. So you want to have less than 13 life to make this guy a creature, and then the less life you have the bigger this gets, and it can end up pretty huge. So this is sort of our principal threat. But we're also pairing it with good old Murktide Regent, who we should have a lot of cards in our graveyard due to the way this deck works. So we can do this. We can also reanimate our Street Wraith or reanimate our opponent's creatures too. So that's how we're winning the game. But what this deck mostly is a sort of tempo-y deck that's going to smash your opponent's resources and then win the game quickly with a big haymaker. So it's not quite like Delver, where you play a guy and protect it and you knock your opponent off balance while that creature gets there, and then maybe finish them off with a Murktide. This one is more of messing with your opponent's resources and then playing a really efficient beater, even more efficient sometimes than Murktide. Obviously we have Murktides as well, but we're not looking to like Delver people or anything like that. So the way that we're facilitating this Death Shadow is by making our own life total take a beating. So we've got Snuff Outs for that, which are excellent in the format at the moment due to the Mono White Initiative deck being the most played deck in the format. We've got Thoughtseizes, just a really useful card to mess with your opponent's hand. We've got, most importantly though, these Watery Graves. We've got 3 Watery Graves here, and we've got a bunch of fetch lands. So we can shoot ourselves for 3 damage off of a fetch land getting a Watery Grave here. Now we can get some Underground Seas, and we do have 1 island in our deck, which normally you wouldn't see in Death Shadow decks, but since the initiatives come into the meta, people are running 1 basic, so they at least get advantage of taking the initiative. So that's the ways we're hurting ourselves. Oh, and the Street Wraith, they cycle for 2 life, and Force of Will does hit us for 1, which isn't irrelevant when we're trying to get our life total low. And then to go with our sort of threats and things, we've got the classic suite of 8 blue spells of Ponder and Brainstorm. We've got our Force of Wills and our Dazes. We've got a full set of the 4 Wastelands. So we're going to be hitting our opponent's mana a bit, and then we're going to be countering some of their spells, discarding cards from their hand, fatal pushing and snuffing out their lads. And then we've also got these Baleful Strixes, which never used to be in the build, but in a world of initiative, having these Death Touch flyers are pretty good because they've got evasion, so they can fly over and steal the initiative. They've also got Death Touch, so as long as they don't have Seasoned Engineer, this can trade in combat with any of their guys. That's pretty much it. There's a lot of cool lines with this deck because you've got to manage your own life total as a resource here because you want to get it low, but you don't want to get too low that you can just get bopped and killed out of the game. And we've obviously got Brainstorm and Ponder in our deck, which means we have a lot of play and choices of how we like construct our turns. So there's a lot of play to this one, and it's quite fun. Sideboard wise, we've got a whole array of stuff here. So Powder Keg, the reason the deck runs Powder Keg is because this blows up artifact lands as well. So the Ratchet Bomb that you can play, that one doesn't actually blow up artifact lands. It blows up all non-lands. So this one can't hit Planeswalkers, for example. It just destroys artifacts and creatures. You can't hit enchantments either. But what you can do is blow up all of like 8 casts, Urza Saga tokens, and their Seat of the Synods, and all their mana rocks and everything. So it kind of, that's the matchup that's really there for. We've got a Grafdigger's Cage and Graveyard Hate. We've got a Surgical to go with it. There's not the hugest amount of graveyard hate, but we have a lot of permission, so we're kind of hoping that we can work around with our permission there. We've got a couple of Tourachs, which have Pro-White, which is a very useful ability in this day and age, but it's also good against control decks as well, because, again, they're going to struggle to remove it, and attacking their opponent's hand is going to be useful. Against combo decks, we might be wanting this just as more disruption, but we'll see when we get there. A Force of Negation, just as an additional Force of Will. We've got another Fatal Push and a Cast Down for a bit more removal. We've got these Stubborn Denials, which are usually going to be turned on because of our Murktide Regents and Death Shadows. So we're going to be able to use this as a hard counter. A couple of Hydroblast because, you know, Expressive Iteration is a real card. And we also need to be able to deal with Blood Moon. And now we have our 1 island. We can actually go and fetch the island ready for the Hydroblast in that matchup. Brazen Borrower, just a little catch-all answer to stuff. And for slower matchups, we have a Court of Cunning, which can hopefully just do the job and mill our opponents out while we sit behind it drawing cards. That's pretty much the deck there. So again, it's relatively straightforward what it wants to do, but the lines you take can be quite complex in how you get there, if you know what I mean. All right, One more thing to do before we jump into a league. Need to plug myself, don't I? So, likes, comments, subscribe. These things cost you nothing and they help me out. So why not do it? All right, let's jump into a league with blue-black Death Shadow. We're on the draw. This gives us 3 draw steps, including the Street Wraith, to find a second land, which seems fine to me. I think we can keep this one. We have the Force of Will Protection. We also have the Thoughtseize. So we'll keep this. Our opponent's already mulled to 6 as well. City of Traitors. So this is probably the initiative. Oh, no, maybe not. It might be Epic Gamble. Grim Monolith. It could be like the colourless Karn deck as well. There's a lot of options what our opponent could be playing right now. A Shadow Spear. This looks like the Turbo Ad Nauseam deck that Tony Scaponi was playing. Lightning Greaves. Our opponent's played some interesting cards there. This might just be old-fashioned mud, which obviously I haven't seen for a long time. I think we probably just get a Watery Grave here. Pay 2 life. And we will Thoughtseize our opponents, see what they're working with. Walking Ballista and a Cavern of Souls. Sure. So let's pop out our opponent's reveal cards. And let's go. So we can Wasteland next turn. We've got this Street Wraith as well. And this Daze. We've got a lot of options for ourselves. We'd like to hit the Cavern so that our counterspells work. I think the scary things we're looking at seeing cast against us are probably more towards the like Karn. Okay, they're not playing the Cavern of Souls. So this turn, I think we're just going to cast a good old-fashioned Ponder first. What do we got here? I don't really want the Strix necessarily. I would like the Polluted Delta and I would like the Wasteland here. So I'll put the Polluted Delta on top and then the Wasteland. So we can play this one out. And we just snap off this. This will make our days better and we have the backup Wasteland now for the Cavern that we know is coming. We don't need to fire off our Street Wraith yet. Another thing that you can do with Street Wraith that's quite good in this deck is when you do a Ponder, it means you've got a fetch hand, you can draw 2 of the cards and then throw it back because we don't really need the extra card right now because we've got some pretty good tools to work with. This way, when we play the fetch hand next turn, if we want the Baleful Strix, we can actually just go and get the Baleful Strix with our Street Wraith. So it just gives us more options. Inventor's Fair. Sure. And a Pithing Needle. So this is probably going to name Wasteland. Do I want to stop my opponent being able to... I think I will do this. Because they're just going to name Wasteland. And we already have this Wasteland in hand. And we don't have a Brainstorm to get rid of it. So I think I'm going to happily... I think we just Wasteland our opponent here. Again. We're a couple of turns off of actually making inroads into the game. And they don't have to worry about our days now. We will be drawing this Baleful Strix on top of our library. This one is to pitch to this. The next one is to help draw us through. But we're just trying to play our Murktide now. So there's a Cavern that we've known about this whole time. Like, yes, we could have saved our Wasteland for the Cavern, but I'd rather get the one that takes that gives them uncounterable, that gives them a tutor right now. So we'll play this. We'll play this untapped for now, just in case something gets away from us. Because this can go and get us a Watery Grave and shoot us a 3, and we have the Street Wraith, so we can make a Death Shadow viable if the time comes. Okay, so there's a Saga deck, sure. So now we can just play this and go and get ourselves a... Trying to work out what we're going to need. I don't think we need the Shadow now. I think we just take the Underground Sea. And then we'll cast a Murktide. So blue. Blue. Just make it as big as we can here. So get rid of Daze, Ponder, Thoughtseize, and then just a couple of lands. So we've got a 6/6 and we've got a Force of Will to back it up. We will need to kill this as a Saga construct when it starts wearing the Shadow Spear. Now what they can do is they can make it now and equip it with the Lightning Greaves, which is slightly annoying for us, but because it gives it Shroud, they won't be able to put the Shadow Spear on it, so we won't actually care about that. So they have to make this, then put the Shadow Spear on it, then put the Lightning Greaves on it. So we're looking to ponder into removal spell next turn. Trinisphere. Not a big fan of this. I don't think we want to play against Trinisphere. And we've got the spare Force of Will. This spare Baleful Strix, sorry. So that means they're not getting an Urza Saga construct here. So first things first, we want to ponder. Snuff Out is one of the things we wanted. And Brainstorm is obviously a pretty good card. So I think we put Street Wraith, Snuff Out, Brainstorm, draw a card, cycle this to draw a card, and then we can Brainstorm into a land, ideally. We do know what one of the cards is. We don't want to spend too much life on the Street Wraith necessarily. So I think we're putting back one of these, and probably just a land here. We can play this. Then we can attack with our 6/6, the 3-turn clock. We have the Snuff Out, so if they try and make a Saga token and equip it, we do that. We're going to crack this in response to their Saga trigger, just in case they get a Pithing Needle to try and choose us out. I think we just get an Underground Sea here. We're not really on the Shadow plan, and we can always play the Street Wraith for that. So they've got a 4/4, and we also want to spend some life on a Snuff Out, so we don't want to go too low. Manifold Keys. This is going to allow them to untap their Grim Monolith and stuff. A Mox Opal, sure. So they'll tap the Grim Monolith, and then they'll try and Shadow Spear onto their Construct token. And then we'll Snuff it out. I used to play Death Shadow a long time ago, when it still was a Delver deck. Things are quite different now, but some of the same sort of play patterns work. A Thoughtseize when our opponent's got no card in hand. I think we throw this one out. Get ourselves another card deeper into our deck. See if we can find a Daze or something. Another Snuff Out. That's okay. Now, our opponent's living off the top. And we have a creature covered. It will put us to 2, which can leave us a little bit vulnerable to a Walking Ballista. So this turn we come in for 7, and then we have lethal next turn. So I have a choice here. I can keep this Murktide Regent in case I want to cycle for an emergency Force of Will. Because I have 2 lethal threats, I think I'm going to do that. So if something goes really wrong, at least I have this emergency chance of being able to Force of Will. We have a Snuff Out as well. Sure. So making a lot of mana here. This could be like an Ugin or something. An Ugin would have to trade, I think, because it comes in with 7 counters to kill this. White, 10 mana. Is this going to be an Ulamog? Chalice of the Void for 5. Okay. I was a bit worried then. An Ulamog might have been a bit tricky. Alright. So, begin sideboarding. I have to imagine that these Powder Kegs are going to be useful here to blow up a load of artifacts. That seems relatively straightforward. The Borrower to bounce tokens is going to be good here. The Fatal Push and the Cast Down also destroy creatures quite effectively. Force of Negation is going to be good against some of their big scary plays and like turn 1 chalices and things that we really want to deal with. So these are the things we're looking at. So the Snuff Outs were pretty reasonable there. The Baleful Strix didn't look that amazing to me. I think the things we're getting in favour of them are better. And we need one more cut. Probably on the draw, it's a Thoughtseize. Or is it Reanimate, actually? Maybe it's a Reanimate. Right, we'll try this. I'm not 100% sure what's in my opponent's deck. Like, at the moment, I just have them on Urza Saga plus some other spells. The Trinisphere is a bit of an issue. So this hand does not beat Trinisphere. Do we need to multi a hand that can beat a turn 1 Trinisphere? This beats a turn 2 Trinisphere, though. So I think we can keep this. Now, we have our win condition, we have some disruption, and we have ways of furthering our game plan. And there's a Saga, sure. A Manifold Key. We also have a redraw off of our Street Wraith when we need it. Basic Island. I don't think we can afford to use the basic island for this now. I think we have to cast a Thoughtseize here. We're just going to get an Underground Sea so that we don't lose to the Urza Saga. We don't actually have a Death Shadow plan right now. Let's see what they're working with. Oh, my favourite card. Sure. So they got some lands and an Urza Saga. So we can bounce the Urza Saga token. That's pretty elementary. If they cast anything scary, we can Street Wraith. That's what we're doing here. I think we're probably casting Ponder first until we can get another fetch land going. So we've got here, we've got this Wasteland that I would very much like to have. So you can put this on top of our library. So we'd like the fetch land as well. So this, Polluted Delta, and Wasteland. I think we can Wasteland this. They're going to make a token in response. That's fine. I don't really care about 2/2 yet. I don't really know if it's worth using a Snuff Out on when we could be looking at some scarier things. We've got a little bit of a buffer because we haven't been hitting ourselves too much yet because we went for the Underground Sea. So I think we can just allow this one. The Ancient Tube's gone, isn't it? So they have a Wasteland that's probably going to hit our Underground Sea now. So that'll be our choice of whether or not we use our Snuff Out then or not. But we'll see if they have a follow-up play. There's the Wasteland. Do we want to snuff out this Saga token with our opponent's cards in hand? So we're casting Ponder on our next turn. Like, this is going to hit us 4 damage either way. We may as well get off the board, I suppose. So we've got Ponder on top of our library, so we would like that now. So then we will play this Ponder. The next turn we can Brainstorm with a fetch land. Or we can just play the Lad. So we want this. We can't actually cast the Snuff Out just yet, so we don't need that in our hand right now. I think it's probably Misty on the bottom. No, Street Wraith on the bottom. Then the Misty, then the Snuff Out. Actually, do we even want those cards? Misty, Snuff Out. No, I don't think they're good enough. I think we'll shuffle actually. Okay, we got the Misty, which is one of the ones we were more inclined to have there. So next turn we play a Murktide. And how big is it going to be? 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be it's going to be pretty large. And then we can follow up with a Brainstorm fetch land because we've got our second fetch land. 4 mana, Lodestone Golem. Non-artifact spells cost more. Alrighty then. Maybe we're not Murktiding. Thoughtseize, don't really need the Thoughtseize here. Then we can play out this Polluted Delta. We can cast a Brainstorm next turn just to make sure that our Murktide Regent is even bigger. They can use this Manifold Key to make their Lodestone Golem bigger though. Not to make it bigger, to make it unblockable. It'll cost them a little bit of life to do that, but I think we can live with that. I dislike doing these end of turn Brainstorms like this, but we can fetch away one of the cards. Our hand is pretty good anyway, and we're mainly doing it so that our Murktide can be bigger. Okay, our opponent looks like they're playing something big. Khan, the Great Creator. It's a pretty good one. We can't Brainstorm and Force of Will because of the Lodestone Golem, so we just have to let this go. See what they find. We know the one card in the hand is Cavern of Souls. A Crucible of Worlds. So we're cracking this one. Getting ourselves an Underground Sea. Actually, we could have cast the Murktide last turn, couldn't we? Because Delve, you can pay the spell cost with the Delve, actually. So we've punted a little bit there. That's on me. Right. So we have these Wastelands. Not great against the old Crucible of Worlds person. I'd like to cast this Thoughtseize, but I don't think we realistically have the chance to do that. So I think we're on putting these back and probably one of the Wastelands. And so we're casting this for blue. Blue, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll leave that in case we need to reanimate it somehow, but we're probably not going to have a life to. But so yeah, we should have played this last turn. So our opponent's got a Crucible of Worlds there. So if we snap off this Wasteland on their Ancient Tomb, that's not the worst for us. That's worth doing. This is a 2-turn clock, even if they don't use their Ancient Tomb. This makes it more difficult for our opponent to actually get anything else off of Khan, and also makes it more difficult for them to deploy the Crucible of Worlds and do stuff with it. So they can't play Crucible of Worlds now and make a thing, and make a Wasteland. Sure, there's the Cavern we knew about. It's going to name Construct, I imagine, or Golem. Golem, sure. So making this guy unblockable, and that's just going to kill us. So where we didn't play this on the previous turn, we're going to lose. They saw the line that was in front of them. Sure. That's on us, that one. Fatal Push is fine here. We've got lots of fetch lands, so we can kill the big guy. Do we want something like Tourach, just to try and smash their hand down? The Manifold Key means that the Baleful Strix is not that exciting either. Do we want Tourach to hit our opponent's hand, or do we just want to keep the removal spells? I think this is fine as is. I could argue that we want to trim a Street Wraith for a Baleful Strix, perhaps, just for another blue card. I don't hate that, but that's about it, I reckon. We're not accelerating out the Tourach. We don't have like Dark Rituals and stuff, so I don't think it's worth bringing those in. Stubborn Denial. Maybe Stubborn Denial was good enough on the play. We can trim on the Street Wraiths. So what does this hand do? This hand ponders, and then we can play a Death Shadow quite quickly. We'll get a Watery Grave this time. We will ponder. We have the Daze as well. So we got here. So we definitely want this land. We probably want a second Daze for next turn, which means we put Brainstorm on the bottom, then the Daze, then the Strand. So we can snuff something out. We can Daze something. Our opponent did keep 7 though. Can't really interact with artifacts too much. Are they just going to Wasteland us? Sure, that's fine. So we know we've got a Brainstorm on top of our library. Do we even want the Brainstorm right now? I don't think so. I think we just pass with the Flooded Strand, so we're protected against Wasteland here. And then at end of turn we can... So we can take 3... So we could have made a 1/1 Death Shadow. But I don't want to get Wastelanded just yet. Cavern of Souls. Okay, that's turned our plan, a Shadow Spear. I don't think we care about Shadow Spear when we have a Snuff Out. We actively want them to try and make creatures here. I will go and get a Watery Grave here and cast a Brainstorm though. We know there's a Brainstorm on top of our library, which means we should be cycling this first. Wait, no, it's a Death Shadow on top of the library, isn't it? Not a Brainstorm. So we're looking for Thoughtseize is okay. I don't think we need this Strix, and we draw the other card anyway, so put this on top. So this time I think we're on Wasteland. There, Cavern of Souls. Deploy a 1/1 Shadow. Holding up Snuff Out and Daze. This guy's going to get pretty out of hand pretty quickly. What we got for us? It's going to be a Walking Ballista. A Chalice of the Void for 1. I do not want this to happen. Chalice of the Void is pretty good against our deck. So play this out. Pay 2 life, yes. So we can either play out a Death Shadow here, a second Death Shadow, or we can play out the Thoughtseize. We do have the Daze kind of keeping us all right here. So I think we probably just play out the Death Shadow here. And then bash for 3. Like Blast Zone is pretty good against us here. I'm playing the second one out. But next turn these are going to be bashing for 10 total. So our clock is pretty speedy. And if they play a Blast Zone, they're going to lose their Seat of Traitors, so they would need some sort of artifact mana to go with it. And depending on which order they play their spells out, we might be able to mess with that with the Daze. Okay, no play from our opponent. Pretty good for us. Alright, we will. Thoughtseize our opponent. Do we care about any of these spells, is the question. I don't think so. Maybe Khan's Silex. I don't know how they're going to get 3 mana here, because they're about to Wasteland him. I'm going to take the Silex here. And play this out. Wasteland our opponent. That should be game, I think. There we go. Sure. So maybe we should have played the Death Shadow out 1 turn earlier than we did. But yeah, so that was a good showcase of loads and loads of permission and disruption, and then just some really big beefy lands to finish the game off. So we had a Murktide Regent game, we had a Death Shadow game, and we had a game where I forgot I could play my Murktide Regent cheaper, which we might have been able to win that game if we'd have done that. Alright, so let's go on to the next round. We're on the play for round 2. We have a Thoughtseize, Wasteland hand, but we don't really have... Do I think 2 Thoughtseize is going to be good? Like, this Force of Will requires a bit of work. I think we can mulligan and get a better hand, because like these Wastelands, we don't know how good they're going to be either. We do have a basic of our own. But we can Thoughtseize and then Thoughtseize Wasteland on the next turn. That is a very strong opener. We're not going anywhere is the only problem. It's one of those hands where we disrupt our opponent, but if we don't draw a cantrip or a creature, we're not really getting into this game after that. I'm tempted to keep just because of how fast the format is now. We don't know what we're up against. We don't have a Death Shadow, so we're just going to get this Underground Sea. And Thoughtseize our opponent. Okay. So what have we got here? We have this Allosaurus Shepherd, which is going to mess with our Thoughtseize. This Heritage Druid is very good for the purposes of their ability to generate a load of mana. Well, it's not the Behemoth, I'll tell you that much. I think it's one of the 1-drops. It's probably the one that plays around counterspells. Just so if we draw a blue card next turn, it's useful. Ideally, our opponent will play a non-basic this turn. I'm probably going to play the Verdant Catacombs, though, and crack it for a basic forest, and deploy the Heritage Druid. That's what I suspect is going to happen here. Oh, they played the Besagi. That was an error. Well, they don't know it was an error necessarily. Street Wraith. I think the correct thing here to do is get maximum information about what our hand is going to deliver for us. Play this out. I think we will Wasteland this. We'll Thoughtseize our opponent. So now we kind of need to go somewhere. So they've got another Heritage Druid, which is a bit of an issue for us. It probably has to be the Glimpse here. So now we're in a bit of a bind because we don't have a creature to try and win the game with. We can draw a Reanimate for a Street Wraith, which isn't great, but it'll do some work. This is almost certainly getting a basic forest. There we go. No more Wastelands for us. But if they Green Sun Zenith for a Dryad Arbor, we can hit that. So we're going to take 1 from this, which is going to turn our Death Shadows on. I don't necessarily know we're a Death Shadow, but they probably should think about it with the Wasteland. Yikes, another Thoughtseize. I guess we're not casting it, right? We can take the Green Sun here. So they've got Cradle. So now we're looking at Flooded Strand. And we'll save that for a Brainstorm. We have a Wasteland for their Cradle if they play it. They're probably not going to play it until they have something to do with it. Wirewood Symbiote, sure. We're probably just going to get beaten down by little guys here. Interesting they played the Cradle there. I wouldn't have played that Cradle, and I also wouldn't have played the Besagi on 1 either. Like, the only thing you need black mana for in game 1 is a Grist in your hand. I think I could just play that and got Forest. Can waste on this, but we do need to find a way of actually, like, you know, winning the game and killing our opponent's creatures in combat at this rate, because our Snuff Out's not really going to do it. So this is not looking good for us, actually. We just drew no creatures, which is definitely something I did say could happen right from the off. Because Allosaurus Shepherd, which is what we can counter it. So we can reanimate a Street Wraith or an Allosaurus Shepherd. If we animate the Street Wraith, we die. If we animate the Allosaurus Shepherd, we can trade off. Yeah, I think it's probably that, isn't it? Not a great play, truth be told. Do we want to play this island, or do we want to keep it for the purposes of Brainstorm? I think I'd rather keep it for the purposes of Brainstorm. So we're going to lose this game, which is fine, I guess. It's a good demonstration of why you shouldn't keep hands that don't actually go anywhere. Like, if that had 1 cantrip in it, then it would have been a good keep, but what are they casting here? A Natural Order that can't be countered. Yeah, we're dead. They're just going to go get... Yeah, they got 2 Behemoths. So sometimes they run 1 and 1 with Progenitus and Behemoth, but the correct build is usually 2 Behemoths, and it looks like they're on that. So Grafdigger's Cage is pretty good here. Powder Keg, pretty good at killing their little guys. Plague Engineer, great little guy there. Fatal Push, cast down, these just kill their guys, which are things we need to do. We need our Snuff Outs. Our Reanimates aren't that great here. The Thoughtseizes are fine, but removal is better. Daze and Force of Will can look pretty bad in the face of Allosaurus Shepherd, but we have a lot of removal, so I think we need to keep those in. We can probably trim on some sort of like Street Wraith plan here, because we're also getting rid of our Reanimates, and they will be chipping us for a little bit of damage here and there. Yeah, this seems fine. Brazen Borrower has text. Force of Negation sometimes has text. I don't think we need Tourach here. I think this is just what we're going to go with. On the play, we definitely want the Dazes. Again, Allosaurus Shepherd can get us, but our aim is to remove a lot of our opponent's creatures here. So this is one of the best creatures in our deck, so we want to keep this. Play this out. Turn 2, we can either Brainstorm or cast a Baleful Strix, depending on how our opponent's turn goes. A Nettle Sentinel is fine by me. A Murktide Regent. This means we're probably looking at casting a Brainstorm now. So we'll crack this, we'll get an Underground Sea. So we want this Wasteland eventually. We don't really want this Watery Grave though. We want this Baleful Strix to pitch, which means we're probably putting the Wasteland on top. And then we will draw with the Flooded Strand next turn. Depends on what our opponent does with their mana base, really. But having the access to the Wasteland is kind of where we want to be. Heritage Druid, sure. We want our opponent to play out a load of 1/1 elves. Do they not have a second land here? Doesn't look like it. Okay, they do have a second land, and it's a wastelandable land. Okay, so they can play out some more elves here. They tap these 3. Elvish Visionary. This is one they can return. No, it's Return of Forest, isn't it? So they can't. We can't actually wasteland the Bayou while the Quirion Range is in play anyway. But this does cantrip, so it doesn't really matter that we kill it too much. Unless they play a Wirewood here. Allosaurus Shepherd is the last card out of their hand. This will give them a 3rd elf for the purposes of Heritage Druiding right now. Yeah. We really need to survive this turn. If this is all they do, though, that's not too bad for us. They have 3 cards in hand. 1 mana floating. If we've got another elf. Okay. So we get to have a very good turn now. So we'll play this out. We'll crack this. We'll get an Underground Sea. We'll crack this. We'll get ourselves a Watery Grave here. We'll cast this. I'm going to name Elf. This is only a 3-for-1. Because the Visionary is already cantripped. Elf, please. That shreds a bunch of their board. And the Nettle Sentinel can't attack in. We have a counterspell to protect our Plague Engineer. The thing that can take this game over now is a Grist. But we can play a Murktide. Yeah, okay, so they're just conceding to the Plague Engineer. Good sideboard cards are good. Sure. So we need to do a similar thing again, basically. Yeah, I think this is fine. Like the Dazes are kind of awkward, I won't lie. But I don't think we have a better choice than a Daze here. The other option would be 1 Force of Negation, so that when we're on the play we can stop. So it's easier to stop a Glimpse turn. I don't hate that. Like the scary things they have in their deck are non-creature spells. Do you want Stubborn Denial instead of a Daze? Probably doing the same thing a lot of the time. Right, we'll just submit like this. So our opponent's probably bringing in like Dismember or something that can kill Plague Engineer, just because it's very hard for them to deal with. Okay, so we have a Ponder, we have Baleful Strix, we have double Thoughtseize. I'm not feeling this one. I would like to have some removal. Okay, we'll keep this one. This one has removal. Now, we're in a little bit of a bind here, because do we keep... What do we keep out of these things? I guess the Force of Will probably goes back. Our aim here is to ponder. They might have Thoughtseize of their own, but our aim here is to ponder, holding up, which can also then snuff out in the same turn cycle. Then we can untap Fatal Push and hopefully deploy another land, and then turn 3 Plague Engineer. So we can keep them off balance until we get a big hammer like the Plague Engineer. Okay, interesting. So we're going to snuff this out, I reckon. So we just want to get ourselves an Underground Sea here. Cast ourselves a little Ponder. See what we can find. Force of Negation and 2 Death Shadows. So these Death Shadows aren't looking spectacular right now. I think we have to shuffle this. We're looking for a land, really. Okay, we found a land. And then we're going to snuff this guy out. I guess it's closer to Death Shadow, but we needed a third land because what our game plan is play Plague Engineer. It's a good game plan. A Green Sun Zenith again, sure. A Cradle. So if we draw a land this turn, that would be quite nice to inform our later decisions. So we can play this out, crack this for a Watery Grave to take 3 damage. This lets us deploy a little Death Shadow. And then we can Fatal Push a Dryad Arbor, which weakens their Cradle. It feels like they're just building up for a big Glimpse turn. And if we can slow them down from doing that, that's going to be really helpful. Because we just need to survive until we can play Plague Engineer. A Brainstorm. So our Plague Engineer doesn't look that good right now. It's kind of annoying. So I think we are Brainstorming first here. Powder Keg is good. Watery Grave is good. We don't need the Murktide this turn. Although we can deploy the Murktide this turn. I think we want to be casting the Wasteland this turn is what we really want to be doing. Playing the Wasteland, sorry, not casting. So we're probably looking at Powder Keg on top. And then Ponder. And then play out this Wasteland. I think we have to Wasteland this Cradle right now. We can't actually attack our opponent with our 1/1 yet. But that's fine. They can't attack us because it will pump our guy. Got 5 cards left in their hand. Which is quite a lot. But maybe they can vomit some elves. See, now they're thinking if we attack here, that's actively bad for us. Because I've got a feeling they're going to cast something in their second main phase. They're just debating whether or not they want to reduce our life total by making our Death Shadow bigger. I think for the elves player, they don't want to do that. I think you want to just keep your elves. You're basically just trying to combo us more or less, unless you can get enough people to chump block the Death Shadow. I don't think getting little bits of damage is going to help because they're not really in a position to be throwing anything under the bus right now. Yeah, okay, they made the same decision. They're not playing another follow-up thing. Interesting. They're evoking an Endurance. Okay. That stops us from playing our Murktide, I guess. So we have this Ponder. Do we want to Ponder? Or do we want to play this Plague Engineer? I think I'm going to Ponder first. So probably not playing the Plague Engineer this turn. We have a Daze, which is nice. We have a Flooded Strand, which is okay. I don't actually want the Powder Keg right now because we've got the Plague Engineer doing a similar job and we've got our Death Shadow as our way of winning. The Watery Grave is going to be making our guy bigger anyway. So we can play the Watery Grave, hold up Daze, and then get the Flooded Strand. I think we just need to shuffle here though. Yeah, that's better. So then we are casting a Brainstorm. Did not find a fetch land. So I think we're putting Murktide and then Strix on top. We'll play this. Pay 2 life. Go attacks with our 3/3. We do need to lower our opponent's life total. Our opponent's got 4 cards in hand, so it is possible they can do some good stuff this turn. But what we want them to do is just play some 1/1 elves. A Visionary. That is a 1/1 elf. Not a very exciting one though. So there's a Strix. I think we deploy the Plague Engineer now. So they've got a 1/1 to try and they can block my 3/3 with that. Seems unlikely. We're not a million miles away from casting a Murktide. We've got this Brainstorm, and then we just need 2 more cards. So fetch land and something else. Like we could cast this removal spell that we have got in our hand, for example. I think we're in an okay spot. A Wirewood Symbiote. Okay, so this is a creature that doesn't die to our Plague Engineer, but it will die to our cast down. They're trying to use this so they can keep bouncing the Nettle Sentinel. But that's not going to work on my watch, I'm afraid. We probably Brainstorm first, just in case we hit fetch land or something. We can work out where we're going. Okay, so we have a fetch land. We want fetch land, cast down, Death Shadow. So we're probably not looking at playing a Murktide or a Baleful Strix now. Let's play this out. Let's cast down, targeting this guy. Black. Black. Get attacks with both of our guys. There's only 1/1, so we'll crack this. And get Watery Grave. Pay some life. It's going to deal them lethal damage. Oh, sorry, not lethal. Oh, I've done that wrong. I keep forgetting the damage step on this. Is after damage is dealt. Ignore me. We could have had an additional 2 points of damage. Sorry, 3 points of damage on them that turn. But we had the game anyway. But again, that was doing it in the wrong phase. I meant to do it here on the block stage, not the damage stage. Because the block stage, when you get priority, is after they've declared blocks. Whereas the damage stage, you get priority after you've dealt damage. Which is useful if you've got creatures you want to sack after they've dealt damage, sort of thing. Like Fulminator Mage, you want to hit them before you can go into your main phase. Anyway, so we won the round anyway. Death Shadow plays Plague Engineer. Plague Engineer is a very good card against elves. Especially this particular elf. Like the Newton elves, not so much, but this elf has really struggles against it. And we had a bunch of removal as well, because that's what we bought it into. Right, on to the next round. So we're on the play. This is a bit like that other hand we had where we didn't have a any action, but we had like a lot of disruption. But this time we have the Brainstorm. So I think we will keep it this time and use our Brainstorm to fix us. So our opponent's on the play, sorry. I'd rather not fire off this emergency Force of Will on turn 1. Okay, the client did not enjoy that. What is that? As a snow-covered forest. Okay, so we have an Underground Sea here. I think we will just play this one out. And Thoughtseize our opponent. Get the best idea possible what our opponent is playing. Okay, so our opponent is playing a Lurin. So what do we want to deal with here? So they can't cast a Baleful Strix next turn because they got a Forest. So we're probably looking at just taking a Force of Will here. That seems fine. We don't know what build our opponent is on. They could be on the build I played the other day. Or they could be on something else. Let's see what we've got here. So I'm going to cast a Brainstorm. Okay, so I would like to Wasteland here. We've got a lot of lands here though, which is a bit annoying. I think the power of Wastelanding here is too strong. So next turn we draw a fetch land, and then we also reanimate our Street Wraith unless our opponent gives us a more exciting target. Sure. So again, we would like to Wasteland here, so I suppose we should Wasteland here. We know the top card of our library is just a land here. It's kind of annoying that we've had to do it this way around, but it's fine. I think knowing that you can leave your opponent on one land is such a strong choice that... okay, so we also have this as well now. So we're going to tax. I think we're just casting our Thoughtseize on our opponent here. Leovold, Baleful Strix, Cavern Harpy. So these are cards that they're going to struggle to cast because they have a basic forest in play right now. I guess Baleful Strix is the most annoying one of these. Although Cavern Harpy also kind of annoying, but Baleful Strix will give them card advantage as they go. We've got a Force of Will in the pocket. We've got a slow clock here, but it's a clock, and our opponent doesn't have any lands. A Ponder. This is the sort of thing we wanted to find. What have you got for us, deck? A Brainstorm is an above average draw, and we've especially when they've got these bad cards in our hands. So I guess we put back these two, and then the Brainstorm on top. Don't shuffle, draw this, crack this. Well, I think we are on Underground Sea territory again here. Do I care about this? What do they exile? An array. Honestly, I don't care about this. Like, all they're doing is stopping us from Murktiding. We don't actually have a Murktide now. Let's get this Underground Sea. And we'll Brainstorm. Okay, we don't want a Watery Grave. We don't want this Flooded Strand. So they can go back. We'll play out this land. We'll go to tax. Now I'm going to fetch at end of turn. Our opponent's end of turn. But I'm going to get Watery Grave tapped. Because I don't think we need to pay any more life this game to win it, to be honest. I think we'd rather have the life resources for things like Snuff Out than having a slightly bigger Death Shadow earlier. Sure, we'll cast a Brainstorm. A lot of good resources here. Yikes. We're not playing the Wasteland this turn, so we put the Wasteland on top, then the Force of Will, and then we play this guy out to draw back the Force of Will, and then we've got a Wasteland on top. The clock's not that fast, but we have triple Daze and Force of Will, and our opponent has one land in play, so not a great spot to be our opponent. A second land, then it's a forest, so they're not really any closer to casting any of their spells. So we've got a 2-turn clock now. We can play out our Wasteland, or we can leave it as a little surprise for our opponent, or something to Brainstorm away with. A snow-covered swamp. Okay. So they can play the game a little bit. So again, I'm glad we didn't pay any extra life than we needed to. So they can cast an Endurance if they wanted to, but they didn't have one. So my Street Wraith is unblockable now because they have a swamp. So they need to be able to resolve an Allure in through our hand. Okay, sure. So our opponent is playing Allure. So things that counterspell Allure are probably going to be good here. So that's Stubborn Denial and Force of Negation. Plague Engineer on Harpy is very good against them, as I discovered the other day. The Ectobits of Removal, also pretty handy. Circular Extraction, good against the Euro. What of ours isn't good here? They've got some... They don't have the most impressive looking reanimation targets. The Snuff Outs can't hit Cavern Harpy. They can hit Parasitic Strix, but if they're on the Acererak build, which they might be, this doesn't hit anything, so I think we're better off with these sorts of removal spells. Trading off our Baleful Strixes is fine. They're trying to resolve a 4-mana spell, so Daze is actually good here, even on the draw. Our Thoughtseizes are fine. Maybe it's just... is it Reanimates and Death Shadows? Reanimates and Street Wraiths, I mean. Leave 1 and 1 in. Just so we've got a little bit of flexibility there. The Grafdigger Cage doesn't work because the Lurin is casting. So I think this is fine. Alluring is not a deck that kills you until turn 4, so I think we can keep this on. You've got a reasonable selection of Disruption here. We should have played out our other land first. That was a mistake. We'll just get an Underground Sea first. Let's see what we're working with. Baleful Strix, Cavern Harpy, Ice Fang. Like, I guess we're just going to have to grind through all these Strixes, right? So we'll take away a Harpy, because that's part of their win condition. And we'll say go. I don't think we bother counterspelling our opponent's Strix here. We don't want to waste a Force of Will on it. And we don't want to Daze to set ourselves back a turn here. Okay, so drew us... No, there's a snake or something to draw. So this turn, they're probably playing out the Baleful Strix. Yep. Some cool art. I don't know what that's from. It doesn't say on it anyway, does it? Secret Lair, maybe. Sure. Back to us. Okay, so we've got Daze. We play this. Pay 2 life, yes. Play this. Little Baleful Strix out. Draw a card. We've got another land, which is something we would like to have in this matchup, so that's fine. We might end up putting Plague Engineer on Bird at some point. It's not outside the realms of possibility. Is this another Baleful Strix? No, it's the Ice Fang. Sure. Interesting choice that they played that one out. And especially that they played out now. Maybe they were trying to look to draw into a Thoughtseize, which would make sense leaving up the black there, but they could have done it this way and left up black-green. I think we can trade these off. Our opponent bounces their creatures and reuses them. If we keep them off the board, it's actively good for us. Polluted Delta. I think we'll play out a land first. Then go blue, black. Make a bird. Draw a card. And this time we have a Fatal Push if we need it. We have Daze and Force of Will. So if they go to resolve an allure in this turn, we can at least make a good fight of it, as well as having a removal spell in the form of the Fatal Push to interfere with something. So this looks like just a Ponder Brainstorm turn. Yeah, Ponder. They shuffle their library. Okay. Misty Rainforest. This will get them a snow covered, so their Ice Fang can trade. And there's the last card of theirs that we knew about. I don't see the point of dazing this one. I think we'll take the 1 damage here. We are a Death Shadow deck after all. We'll leave this up. A Ponder. That's a pretty good one. Let's see what it finds us. A Murktide Regent, a Death Shadow, and a Wasteland. I would like all of these cards. But in what order is the question? If we pinch our opponent's mana this turn, then what else are we doing? We can only cast a Death Shadow by sacrificing stuff. So I think we want Death Shadow bottom, then the Regent, then the Wasteland. And we can play out our Wasteland. Here our opponent's green. So they need another green source before they can go off anyway. And then we just pass the turn. Next turn we can cast a Murktide. And turn after we can cast a Death Shadow. A Brainstorm, sure. So we're in a relatively good position here. Okay, so they got a Polluted Delta to fetch with. Tropical Island, so that's one of the green sources they needed. An Uro. Do we care about this Uro? No, we don't. We care about it on the backside. So I can have this one. So there's our Murktide. It's not going to be the biggest Murktide we've ever seen. Blue, blue. 1, 2, 3, 4. Force of Will. I think we can afford to daze this one. What do they pitch? Another Force of Will. We can replay our Underground Sea. So we could have Fatal Pushed the Baleful Strix in our opponent's last turn, so that our Murktide becomes 1 bigger. But I think I'd rather save it for when we need to attack, or when we need to mess with their combo. I think we can do this now though. This time we get Death Shadow as well. An Ice Fang. Do I want to counterspell an Ice Fang? I don't think it's worth my time. I think we're just going to lose our Murktide here. Yeah, pretty bad for us there. We do get to freshen up with this delightful little guy. Oh, what am I doing? I forgot to crack my land first. Oh my god, that's so embarrassing. That's so embarrassing. My sequencing was completely off. I was supposed to crack my fetch land first to make my guy bigger. Oh my lord. Had it all played out in my head and now I'm just going to lose the game. Is this worth... I think we... counterspell this. Yikes. Oh well. The Shame Concede is on. But we'll see if we can draw back in. Sure. Still make a game of this. But our opponent can't cast Allure anytime soon. Oh my god. That's right up there with like casting Brainstorm into Narset type territory there. Okay. So we'll crack this. Watery Grave. Yes, I'll pay 2 life. Now we should have had 2 of these guys. Our opponent can't, unless they get a green mana, they can't play another Ice Fang. Okay, they got a green mana here. But they're tapping it. Okay, this feels like they're going to play an Ice Fang. So I think we want to Brainstorm first, see if we can find a removal spell for an Ice Fang. Abrupt Decay. Sure. So we can reanimate it. We don't want this. And we would like this cast down though. So I'm going to put these 2 on top. I'm going to cast this guy first. Blue, black to draw the card that we do want. Then we're going to crack this. I think we're going to get Underground Sea here. Our creature doesn't need to be any bigger than it is. And we will reanimate, targeting our Death Shadow here. That gives us a 6/6. And then we have a cast down at the ready for Ice Fangs or any other creatures. Now, if they have an Allure in this turn and the green mana, then they can just kill us. They got the Tourach. Right, we'll cast the Ponder first, just so we've got a bit more information about what tools we have to work with. Oh, okay. I accidentally clicked one of those. Playing in on top and then the Thoughtseize. We'll not shuffle. We'll Thoughtseize our opponent here. They can combo in response because their creatures have flash. You can have an endurance, that's fine. They do now have the ability to hit to play an Uro. But we are going to have a creature that's bigger than Uro. Okay, they're just playing a couple of endurances. Interesting. Sure, I'll take your last card. So if we attack with both of our guys, I think we attack with just our 8/8 here. And hold up our cast down. They're probably just casting Uro this turn, which cast down doesn't hit because Uro is a legend. Let's hope they've forgotten about the Uro in their graveyard. Black, black. I'd like to see if this resolves before our opponent. Okay. So they're not casting an Uro this turn. That's fine by me. So now we now know we need to block. And this will put us to 2, which will make this exactly lethal. What is the one card in your hand? Is it a green source to cast your Uro? What creature type is the snake? Ice Fang is just a snake. Okay. So black, black. Oh, well, I don't need to do that, do I? This has flash now, doesn't it? So we can just attack with our Death Shadow here. And if they play an Ice Fang, we can flash this guy in and kill it. Okay, so we had a horrible misstep where I forgot to crack my fetch land before we played the Death Shadow, but we still managed to win anyway. So the black-blue disruptive elements that you can play in Legacy are incredibly strong. I probably deserve to lose that because of my misplay, but good deck is good, I guess. And apologies for having to see that, although it was quite funny. So moving on to the 4th round, we are 3-0. We are on the play with our hand. We can ponder into Brainstorm. We have Force of Will backup. We have Snuff Out. This is a keep for me. We don't have a threat right away, but we have Island Ponder. Always a good start. So we can get a little bit hit by Wasteland here. We're going to lead out on the Watery Grave, though. Our opponent's going to get some information by us doing that, but having the fetch land for Brainstorm next turn is just much stronger. So we're just going to play into what our best plays are, I think, here. So we can reanimate this as early as next turn. That's fine. So I guess we put this on the bottom, and then the Street Wraith, and then this. And then we do not shuffle our library. We draw this, so we have options of what we want to pitch. And then next turn we can just make a Street Wraith. Let's see if that's any good. Alright, our opponent looks like they're probably on the initiative. So our Force of Will might be getting used in the very near future. We then also have a choice if we play the Baleful Strix out next turn, or we do our Reanimate line. Now we can always counterspell the creature they play and reanimate it instead, which is probably stronger. So I'm probably going to hold the Reanimates for that. So we want the Reanimate on top of our library, so we're going to cycle this first. And we'll play this out. Because we've got the Snuff Out, we don't really need any more pain from our mana base here. So I'm just going to play out a little bird. So this is going to give us a really good blocker. It's going to give us an evasion creature to get over the tops of our opponents. And yeah, so we can kill a creature or we can Force of Will a creature. Now they might have a cavern. So they might have something like Petal Cavern something, but if they don't, then we just get to hit the thing. Archon of Emeria. We don't care about this one. I think we are just snuffing this one out at end of turn, so we can double spell on our turn. I liked how it was getting a bit precarious, but that's fine by me. Seasoned Dungeoneer, Source of Plowshares, Solitude, and all that jazz. Quite a lot of stuff going on here. They got Caracas too. I think we take the Seasoned Dungeoneer here. The Touch of the Spirit Realm is going to be a problem for us. It means we're not really going to be able to reanimate this. I think we are into Brainstorm territory here. Another Reanimate. I don't think we can afford to pay enough life for 2 Reanimates. Would we rather have a Ponder or a Brain... Actually, we don't really want this other Street Wraith either, do we? So we can put both of these back. We can play this out. And we can go and get ourselves an Underground Sea. And cast a Ponder. Cast a lot of spells this turn. That always feels good. We want Snuff Out. We want Wasteland. Polluted Delta, not so much. But I think the other 2 cards are good enough that we just want them here. So they don't really have a play next turn with what they've currently got available. There's the Crackers we know about. We've taken the Seasoned Engineer from them. It's not something we can reanimate looking at the ability they have, because Touch the Spirit Realm, it puts it under its owner's control, which isn't really what we want. So I think we are in attacking time for a very small amount of damage. They pitched the plow here. Sure. They've 2 for 1 themselves against my guy that is a 2 for 1. So that's a 3 for 1 for me. What are they doing here? They're going to try and blink this, are they? Interesting. Interesting. I think we just hard cast to Touch the Spirit Realm in a second. That's fine. We do this where they don't have any mana available there. So they've used a lot of cards just to try and get a Solitude into play. Again, we're on 9, so creatures won't take long to kill us. Okay, so they've got a City of Traders. They can deploy a Solitude if they want to. An Elite Spellbinder, though. That's an interesting one. I think we will counterspell this one. So I think we are Wastelanding this. They did not float. Interesting. I think we just reanimate the Seasoned Engineer here. Touch the Spirit Realm can really cause us trouble. That's for sure. But this is the quickest clock available. I'll take this. I think we hold this for Brainstorm purposes. We're probably playing out our fetch land though. But we don't want our opponent to know we have a fetch land in hand. So I think we'll just hold. So they can just draw a white card and exile this. Or they can draw... Okay, they're just scooping to their own Seasoned Engineer. You love to see it. Okay, so we want some removal. We want our pro-white guys. Removal, pro-white guys, these are good. Brazen Borrower is fine. Has text. Plague Engineer has text. I don't think these Dazes are going to be very good. I think we'd just rather have the removal. And that looks more or less fine to me. I'm not big onto these Street Wraiths. I do like the ability to change the size of my creatures in combat. I do like being able to counterspell my opponent's removal on my big creatures. Stubborn Denial is non-creature spell, so it won't counter Solitude. It will only counter plows. Because Chalice is so good against us, do we want to put in a Powder Keg? I think we'd rather just have a Brazen Borrower as an answer in our deck. I think that's better. We probably want a Force of Negation on the play so that we can counterspell Chalice. Do we want a Powder Keg? Like, the Powder Keg is literally just there for the Chalice, but it can sweep up some of their other land, some of their other things. I think it's fine to have. And would I rather play Engineer than this last Street Wraith? I don't think so. Actually, we've seen the... we've seen the 3/1 flyer, so I quite like the Plague Engineer as just a way of being able to shut that down. Can also hit Thalia as well. Maybe we should want a second one, but we haven't seen the Thalia yet. We just have to assume it's in there. So what does this hand do? This hand wastelands them a lot and removes their first creature, and then leaves us with needing to take 1 more point of damage. We don't have a counterspell for a first threat, which I'm not a big fan of. I think we keep. Like, this can lose to the perfect turn 1, which they didn't have. Okay, so we're going to wasteland our opponent on turn 1, which is one of my favourite things to do in Magic the Gathering. Goodbye, Ancient Tomb. We have 2 Snuff Outs now, so we can get our Death Shadow into being alive range. Cavern of Souls. Cleric. Okay, so their play was to make a White Plume Adventure. I will play another Wasteland and stop that from happening. And then next turn we are just holding up removal and trying to make a big Death Shadow. Force of Will is a very good draw for us. We do need another land soon. City of Traitors. So if they play a White Plume, we counterspell the White Plume. Because we do not want our opponent to get the initiative. Okay, they've had enough. Sure. It's nice to beat up on the initiative for a change. And that felt pretty gross. I'm not sure why they necessarily conceded there. Because, you know, they've got 3 mana. We didn't wasteland them for 2 turn cycles. But maybe they're just all in on trying to get the initiative running. I don't know. Their hand must have been pretty sketchy, I think. But I'll take a win against them however we get it. We're on the draw. This is our opening hand. It's very slow and I don't really like it. I'm going to mulligan. Island Ponder. We have a Daze. We have Brainstorm. We can Street Wraith in an emergency if we need to. I think we keep this. Actually, do we keep Street Wraith here or do we keep... maybe it's the Street Wraith that goes, actually. What is our opponent playing? Let's have a look. We don't have any turn 0 interaction here, so if they've got something fast, they'll get us. Polluted Delta and cracking it. So this could be something like Doomsday. It could be anything that runs islands, though, to be fair. Island Ponder off of a Polluted Delta. Could be a combo deck. Could be anything. Mishra's Bauble. Okay. Cracking the Bauble. I'm less sure what my opponent's playing now. So let's see what card of mine they see. A Flooded Strand. Okay, so it wasn't one that gave away too much information. Playing the Watery Grave here gives quite a bit of information to our opponent. If we Flooded Strand and get an Underground Sea, we can preserve a bit of information. So I'm going to do that. And then we're going to cast this Ponder. Because the moment we... Okay. 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're a little bit off of having our Death Shadow be live here. Our Murktide Regent isn't really live for a while either. Is Baleful Strix good enough to carry us into like the next phase of the game? Like, we do want all of these things at some point. So I think we probably put them in this order. Because we have a Brainstorm as well. Like, I would have liked to have found a Force of Will there, but a Wasteland, sure. Okay, that's fine. Not great, but fine. A Murktide Regent. So we're not really looking to do much here. I think we're just going to play out the Flooded Strand and pass. We can emergency Brainstorm or Daze if we need to, but we could have played out the Watery Grave, but that exposes us to Wasteland that we've already seen is in our opponent's deck. Steam Vent. Is this just Delver that's had a really weird start? Seems likely. A Death Shadow. So we can take out their red source if we want to this turn. Is that a game we want to get into with a Delver player? So they're not on Stifle, sure. Let's play some life. Let's play this guy out. It's good enough to get a Daze. A Pyroblast. So we can't even Daze back, sure. Okay, it does look like Delver just one that had a really weird start. So pretty soon we'll be able to get our Death Shadow up and running, as well as our Murktide. Now, our Murktide's not going to be very big right now. We've only got 1 instant or sorcery in there at the moment. So we probably want to save the Murktide for a little bit. The Death Shadow, once it gets over 4, the only thing that kills it is an Holy Heat. Once it gets over 6, nothing kills it in their deck. They can bounce it with Borrower. We're looking at a Murktide here. This is the Murktide that we cannot Daze. Sure. Now, we have lots of ways of killing this in our deck. I say lots. We've got the 3 Snuff Outs, which is more than some decks have. And a Delver, sure. So we're kind of in the brainstorming into something here. Let's have a look. We can reanimate our Baleful Strix. That seems like a fine play. And I think we're putting these Wastelands on top of our library. Do we want to put them both on top? No, we can put 1 Ponder as well. So if they Daze, we can't... I think we play out this Wasteland, actually, and then we get our Baleful Strix into play this way. Gets us a Ponder. Do we want to Wasteland our opponent here? I don't think it's actually worth wastelanding them just yet. That's what the top card of the library is. You might be able to make them make a mistake using a Mystic Sanctuary. Force of Will. That's a pretty real spell there. Maybe we should be wastelanding them to strip away their ability to pay for a Daze. Expressive Iteration. Sure. So we know they got Force of Will, so let's pop that up here. Might be tricky to force through against this force, but... Oh yeah, this is a trophy match, isn't it? Okay, so they got Scalding Tarn. We've got a Lightning Bolt on our Death Shadow. And they're going to bash us for 9 and possibly kill us. Sure. So if they have a Lightning Bolt, they can direct it at our face. If they crack the Scalding Tarn, they can go and get a Mystic Sanctuary and put the Lightning Bolt on top to guarantee the kill for them. We don't beat both of these guys. I think we just cast a Ponder here. And then probably concede. Yeah, that'll do us. Alright. Let's see what we're dealing with here. Hydroblasts are pretty reasonable here. The Force of Wills are not the sort of game we want to play. We don't want to be 2 for 1-ing ourselves. The Fatal Push is good here. The Cast Down is good here. The Plague Engineers have text and are okay sometimes. I'm not really sure that's where we want to be. This is 60, so that's quite a clean cut. A 4 for 4 there. Stubborn Denial is pretty good here, I think, as well. I think we can trim a Street Wraith for a Stubborn Denial. And, like, Plague Engineer can be okay. But I think we're probably just better off with these things. There is an argument to bring in the Powder Keg just because it can blow up their 1-drops. Maybe get 2 in one go. Is that better than a Street Wraith? Maybe. Alright, we'll run it like this. Now, we can get done by something like a counterbalance. We cannot keep this hand, it has no lands. We cannot keep this hand, it has no lands. Okay, we're starting off on 5 in a matchup that's kind of a bit even, I would say. Okay, so we can keep this 5. We have to get rid of some stuff. I don't think we need the Murktide just yet. I think it's the Brainstorm that goes here. Let me say done. I think we are pondering on turn 1 off of an island, sadly. Street Wraith, Stubborn Denial. I don't think this gets us where we need to go. I think we need to shuffle our library and draw. Okay. Not in a great spot here. Dragon's Rage Channeler. Sure. This turn is going to hurt. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent. So we have this. Our Snuff Out is not going to resolve here. A lot of our stuff is not going to resolve here. Alright, we can try and pinch them on the Brainstorm and hope that they don't hit any spells, and that buys us a couple of turns. That's honestly, I think, the best play we have, considering the hole we're currently in. We could force our opponent to force with our Snuff Out here, but that's going to give them a scry, so I'd rather do that in their turn, so they don't get to scry for this draw step. Okay. They just had it. Okay. I don't know if we can afford to cast the spell in our hand. A Ponder. Let's see if we can bait anything out from our opponent with a Ponder. I doubt it. Hydroblast is something that we might be able to leverage here. We definitely want the Hydroblast. Do you want the Daze? Daze looks like it might be okay. Our opponent is going to cast Expressive Iteration next turn. We kind of need 2 of these cards, really. And we need them now. I think we put the Wasteland on top, then the Daze, and then the Hydroblast. Do I think a Daze is going to be good enough? I honestly don't know. Let me try and snuff this out now. Okay. So we can Hydroblast the Expressive Iteration. And then depending on what they get, depends if we want this Daze. I think we probably have to shuffle here. God, sometimes you wish you were playing Stifle, don't you? I miss playing Stifle. Real magic. This will get a Force of Will from our opponent, I imagine. It did not. Interesting. We're going to crack this. We're not going to pay the life here. Because we've got another fetch land anyway. A Death Shadow. This Death Shadow is going to get forced, I believe. It did not get forced. Interesting. Okay, we'll crack this now so they can't kill it with removal spells. Alright. Opponent's going to make a big Murktide. And then we're going to need to kill the Murktide. Why are you casting Ponder there? That's very greedy. If you don't hit a land here, then you don't get to cast your Murktide. Okay, how big is it going to be? 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be the same size as my Death Shadow. My Death Shadow has the ability to grow. Opponent's sitting with Force of Will in hand. Powder Keg. Do I want to trade my Death Shadow for their Murktide? They bashed me for 6. Maybe we have to. Like, they don't know if we've got a Street Wraith or not. So, they're just taking it. Interesting. Okay. We'll keep this card in hand, give them something to think about. If they have a Mystic Sanctuary, they don't have an instant or sorcery, do they? So, okay. So, they've got Wasteland. If they attack, they have to be able to kill or block our Death Shadow, or they lose the game. Or they can just lightning bolt us. They've given us a 12/12 creature here. They have a lightning bolt. Sure. Alright, so that game was a pretty thorough stomping, but we did mulligan to 5. Let's have a look at the deck. So, we went 4-1, only losing the last game against Delver, which is the best deck in the format and has been for some time. Death Shadow is normally pretty good against Delver as a general rule, but I think the current builds of Delver are so strong that it's kind of a little bit tricky, even now. So we do have like a lot of disruption elements, but sometimes if we get through their things and they don't have the Murktide, and then they have the Murktide, that can beat what we're doing sometimes. But honestly, in this league, the only matchup that felt difficult was the Delver matchup. Everything else felt very easy, to be honest. It felt like we were in control the whole time in all of the games. Now, we're a Brainstorm Ponder deck, and some of the decks we played weren't, which meant that we got the selection, which is kind of why blue is the strongest colour in Legacy, because you have all this ability to fix your draws and find the bits you need. Obviously, Delver takes that to an extreme because it also has Expressive Iteration and Dragon's Rage Channeler. So they kind of do our blue stuff better than we do. But our black cards are very good in the matchup because we have things like Snuff Out and Fatal Push and Thoughtseize, which can like poke holes in things. And then our Death Shadow can be big enough to get, to just smash them down and dodge their removal. And our Baleful Strix can be big enough, can be useful enough to block a Murktide return or whatever. Now, we did mulligan to 5 in the last game, which is a bit unfortunate. And I think we were always pretty unfavoured once that point happened, because that matchup is, you know, kind of, I imagine it's relatively even at the moment, but obviously the ceiling of Delver is always higher than every other deck because it's Delver, right? But I'm pretty happy with how this deck performed. It feels like one of the stronger decks I've played in the meta lately. Now, I could probably check out some guides and work out how to sideboard completely properly. I didn't do that. I just sort of went by ear rather than people who've actually tested it. Like I said, last time I played Death Shadow, it was running Delver of Secrets as a threat. So that tells you that we're talking, what, 8 years ago, something like that, 7 years ago maybe, when I last played Death Shadow. Like, we didn't have Baleful Strix or Murktide in it either. So I think they've changed a fair bit since then. But I think this deck is powerful, and it was very fun to play for the most part. Like, obviously when we're just getting buried underneath Delver, that's not very fun for anyone, but it doesn't really matter what you're playing in that situation. I think the sideboard feels a little bit unfocused to me. I would like it, you know, we have sort of tools that are a little bit all over the place. Like, some of them make sense, right? Powder Keg and Plague Engineer, there's some overlap there. Like, they're both coming in a similar matchup. There's some can name Thopter Elves, this can blow up 8-cast stuff or Elves. You know, 2 pieces of Graveyard Hate always coming in together. Sort of sprinkling of counterspells. I don't think the Court of Cunning is necessarily something we want, because control decks are sort of fallen by the wayside a great deal these days. And there's already Thoughtseize and stuff in this deck. Previous builds of this deck have run him to Tourach as well, which is always quite a fun one that I like for control matchups, possibly even more than Court of Cunning, to be honest. especially since control decks now have to have creatures in, whether that's like Shark Typhoon tokens or Ice Fangs or Snapcasters or Minsk and Booze. I feel them getting the Monarch off you is a lot easier than it used to be. So I'm not sure Court of Cunning is where I would want to be personally. Again, people who have probably played this deck more and got the right numbers for it. I'm just saying my own particular views on it right now. Yeah, other than that, like everything else is more or less fine. I don't really have anything. I don't have enough information from this one league I've done to tweak these numbers meaningfully, apart from the Court of Cunning, I would say. But again, if you're playing in a league, if you're playing in like a higher level event than a league, then you might end up wanting something else for control, just because control pretty much doesn't exist in leagues at the moment. But you do see it appearing in the hands of like a few very skilled players in the bigger tournaments. Anything else to say about this deck? The Reanimate lines are okay. I don't think reanimating Street Wraith like early on is as powerful as it once was. I think it's outclassed by so many things these days that, you know, that little clock isn't necessarily going to get you there very easily. But like the Street Wraith plus things like Ponder or Brainstorm is really powerful. And like you saw in some of the games that I played, I wasn't just firing off Street Wraiths immediately as redraws. I was saving them for when I needed. Like they can be a combat trick, they can be a way of getting 2 cards off of your Ponder immediately, they can be a way of powering through a bad Brainstorm if you get in that sort of position. I think a lot of people underestimate the power of 0 mana draw a card. Like Gataxian Probe obviously was very good because it let you see your opponent's hand. But what a lot of people didn't realise necessarily, like people who hadn't played that much Legacy or weren't that adept at it, they didn't realise that also being able to like get 2 cards, being able to choose when you get that card is very important. So obviously the information was like one of the big things, the fact that it was cantripping peak. But I think a lot of people underestimate the power of, in a blue deck, to be able to draw one, to be able to cycle a card in your hand for 0. Obviously, a 2-life punctual guy as well, which is nice. I feel we could have possibly done with slightly more in, like, a slightly bigger threat somewhere. Now, I understand that Reanimate, Thoughtseize, counterspells are trying to be your threat in a way, because, you know, you counter the Seasoned Dungeoneer like we did and then put it into play, that sort of thing. So there is that option for a threat. Maybe I could see trimming a Wraith for another Regent, or something like that. But obviously, like I've just been saying, the Wraiths are very good. But sometimes you do have hands, like we had that one hand we kept where we'd already mulliganed once, and we kept a hand that didn't have a threat necessarily. It just kind of had like some disruption. And we kept a few hands that were like that, but with a cantrip. And they ended up panning out, but there's definitely a risk to them. That's about it, really, I think, to say about this deck. I'll also say, make sure you check your life total before you put a Death Shadow on the stack. That's my advice to you. As evidence today, where I wasn't paying full attention and just cycled my Death Shadow straight into the bin. All right, I think we're done today. That was quite a successful league, quite a fun one. I hope you enjoyed seeing a deck that actually feels pretty good in the meta, because there's not many of them right now. So there you go. All right, if you're still here, why not subscribe to my channel? If you've already subscribed to my channel, why not find someone else who likes Legacy and send them my content and get them to subscribe? Or even better, post my content on Reddit, because I don't use Reddit, but I know there's loads of Magic players on there who I would very much like to have subscribed to my channel. So if you're someone who spends a decent amount of time on Reddit, please post my stuff there. All right. Thank you very much. Also, comments. If you've got any comments about what I'm playing, what you'd like me to play, how long the end or beginnings of my videos are, anything like that, just send them my way. The worst I can do is ignore them, so by all means, get in touch. All right, thank you for watching, and goodbye.